Hi, welcome once again to Front Row. I'm Rich Scrivani. As a kid, I once made myself up as the Frankenstein monster for a film I was making. And this is all that's left of the getup, the headpiece. But I only wish I had known our special guest Mike Thomas back then, a man who really knows makeup and has worked at it professionally for over 30 years. I really could have used his help. I did meet Mike about 2 years after this project, and even though he was only 17, his talent was already quite evident. Let's meet Mike now. Take a look at his career and some of his work. You're in the front row. Got to ask you, even though I probably know the answer to this, but what got you interested in makeup specifically?
When I was a little boy, I wanted to learn how to draw. And by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I was pretty good. Also, at the age of 8, I started watching Zachary Shock Theater. And I fell in love with monster movies. So when I was a sophomore in high school, as I said, I was pretty good at drawing. And the teachers that were in charge of the fine arts department wanted to put on The King and I, but there were no Asian kids in the school, so they approached me and asked if I thought I could develop a stage makeup that would make the kids look Asian. So I went like, oh boy.
Oh, that must have been fun.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun. I was not a joiner, and this is the first time that I was going to be involved in something with a lot of other classmates. And and that was it. Around about the age of 14, I knew I wanted to do something in show business. I wanted to either be a makeup artist or an actor. And to be perfectly honest with you, the path of lesser resistance led to my becoming a makeup artist. I have no regrets. I'd still like to become an actor, though. That's why I'm here in front of the camera.
And you've done some stand-up comedy, haven't you?
Yeah, I tried that a couple of times.
Yeah. Where and when?
At the comic strip. Basically, a friend and colleague of mine dragged me by the shirt practically to see Richie Tinkin, who owns the comic strip, and he said, "Hey, this guy thinks he's funny." So Richie told me about open mic night, and he said, "Come on in a couple of Mondays and see what it's like." Yeah. So I went and checked it out, and he said, "All right, next Monday we'll put you up there."
Richie Tinkin?
Richie Tinkin. Tinkin.
The Richie Tinkin?
Yeah.
So how many
Eddie Murphy's manager. I don't know if he still is, but he was his manager at the time.
I did not know that. How many times did you do this?
Twice. Yeah. Man, it was the most difficult thing. First of all, to write the stuff. The first time I went up, I really played it safe. I did, I like to do impersonations, so I told a joke using 3 different voices. Reverend Jim was the joke teller, and so that was like the 3-minute core of a 5-minute routine. And so at the end, I was sweating and shaking and breathing heavily, and the people that had come with me to sit in the audience, which at that hour comprised about 75% of the people. There's like 4 people there. They were whacking me on the back. "Oh, you are wonderful!" And so Richie came up and he said, "Well, you have your work cut out for you. Next time you get up there," and I went, "Next time? You mean I have a second chance?" Yes, next time when you get up there, I want to hear more stand-up and fewer impressions, because impressionists are like a dime a dozen.
And that's too bad in a way. I wouldn't have imagined that would be the case.
Yeah. So I went to work on 5 minutes of stand-up, and I'd sit down and think of something really funny, and I'd write it down. I'd say, "Oh boy, go and make myself a cup of tea, come back, drink the tea, read what I had written, take the tea, and pour it all over."
Now this was in the 70s?
The 80s.
The 80s. All right. Well, we got to back up a little bit, because I just want to talk about, very quickly, we got to touch on Zachary.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where I first met you. Yeah. And you did some pretty good makeup on his dance show in Newark, New Jersey.
Any opportunity.
At which your lovely assistant used to appear, who will be on here later.
my lovely fiance.
Your fiance and assistant, and for this show anyway. And so you went on dressed up as
Frankenstein's monster.
right.
Walk into the place and I see Rich Scrivani dressed as Frankenstein's monster, and the two of us looked at each other like
It's like two women with
same dress.
The girls would say to me, "Well, you're taller. You're a good Frankenstein." You know. But that went on for a couple of years. You came in a dozen different makeups, and when I first saw you, I thought this guy's obviously got to make a living out of makeup.
Oh, I'm so glad, Count, that you're joining me. It's just grand. You see him here. Just grand, just grand. And I tell you mothers out there, you mothers' sons there, if you misbehave with the young ladies, we'll send the old boy after you there. Just behave yourselves out there. Autographs, nothing more. Hello, my dear. Oh, wow. Count, look at the blondes there. Did you ever in your life?
I'm looking.
Yes. Well, you behave yourself too. You behave nothing untoward here.
Well, actually, when you invited me down here for the anniversary,
Yes.
it was on condition that I was on my best behavior, so I'd better watch myself.
Well, a slight indiscretion perhaps would be all right. You go ahead. Enjoy. You know how the music is these days. Some old groups, some new groups. We'll play a little music for you. Enjoy, Count, enjoy.
It just the first time I ever saw anything that looked professional, quote unquote.
Oh, thank you.
And then after that, you did a movie. Tell us about the movie.
Yeah.
You were what, 17?
Yeah, the costume was for the high school Halloween dance, and a former classmate of mine was the daughter of Barry Mahon, who was Errol Flynn's manager. And when Flynn died, this is back in the '60s. He started making nudie cuties. They were they were skin flicks, which would get like an R rating today. You couldn't have any full noodle frontity. And I walked up behind her at the dance and gently put my hand on her shoulder. She turned around and went, "Wah!" and ran away. And I'm going like, So at the end of the school year, she came up to me and said that her father wanted to make a monster movie over the summer, and would I like to do the makeup? Whoa! And it was a Frankenstein type monster, but it couldn't be the Jack Pierce, Boris Karloff makeup. So I was talking.
The movie was
Fanny Hill meets Dr. Erotico.
Yeah.
Fanny Hill meets Dr. Erotico.
It must be here somewhere. Somewhere there's a little mistake. One wire to keep me from creating life.
Out of the atomic vial, a monster is created, bent on terror and destruction.
And that was what, 1967, I think?
Summer of 67, yeah.
And so I was on the phone with Barry Mahon, and I asked him if he had cast the part of the monster yet, because I wanted to make a life mask of the guy. And even though I was only familiar with very, very outmoded materials and techniques, I wanted to build the makeup so that it would fit, to be a nice custom fit. A life mask, in case you don't know, is a plaster duplicate of an actor's face, or anyone's face for that matter. It's a life cast. So I asked if he'd cast the part yet, and he says, "Well, this is the way Barry Mahon talks. I believe he's still alive and well, living down in Florida." So he said to me, "No, I haven't. Why? Do you want to do it?" Oh man, I fainted. I picked myself up. So I built up this forehead piece. I actually kind of did a Henry or Victor Frankenstein by stealing parts of makeup from other Frankensteins. Yeah. Like the ridge was from the Karloff Pierce thing. Kind of like these two spines that were in that. The publicity shot that of the makeup that was never used, and the rings over here. Yeah. I had these as like the power inlets instead of electrodes.
Rings in the head.
Yeah, rings in the head, holding the lid down. The hair went straight back. Right. The nose, like that popsicle stick nose, was from the Christopher Lee Curse of Frankenstein. Yeah, and like a couple of other things like that. Like the costume that I had made for the Halloween dance had a sort of like that fur vest. Yeah. That the monster wore, and I incorporated that. Plus,
it was a hybrid. It was a bunch of different monsters.
Yeah.
Now you apprenticed at the Met shortly after that, and then where you got your first professional break, or steady work.
Yeah, legitimate, shall we say? I worked again for Barry Mahon 2 years later when I was 19, and went down to Florida and did a children's movie called The Wonderful Land of Oz. It was the first time I'd run foam latex makeup. And then I had one of the teachers that taught at my high school quit teaching and got into movie production and was working on a film with Dustin Hoffman called "Who is Harry Kellerman and Why is he saying those terrible things about me?" Everybody, you know, like everybody was in the film and nobody went to see it. But Dick Smith was doing Dustin Hoffman's makeup, which was a slight aging. He Hoffman, I guess, was in his 30s at the time, and he wanted to make him look more like he was in his 40s. So it was just like a very subtle aging job. And so Pete Runfellow, the guy that taught music at the high school I attended and always encouraged me to get into makeup, called me up one afternoon. I was living at my grandmother's house. My immediate family had moved way down South Jersey, and I wanted to be closer to New York, where the work was. So I was living over my grandmother's house and you know, doing things like laying on the basement floor going, "How much longer, God?" And I get a phone call one afternoon. I was working at Beckley Perforating. We punched holes in things. So I worked at Beckley Perforating 6 nights a week. And then later on, I got a job through the good graces of my Uncle Bud, who was the police commissioner of South Plainfield. I got a job waxing cop cars. I mean, it was just horrible. So
See how that led into...
natural progression. Punching holes in things, waxing cop cars, Metropolitan Opera House.
And I had an Uncle Bud, too, so that's another thing.
Maybe it was the same guy. What did he look like?
Like Uncle Bud.
All right. So I get a phone
You
call.
got to get to the Met.
Yeah, I get a phone call from Pete Runfellow. He said, I'm working on this film. We need a couple of bodies. We need gophers, okay?
Right.
And he said, and Dick Smith is doing the makeup. Need I say more? Later on, he told me that he heard me hang up the phone, slam the front door, and start the car all at the same time. So I got to show Dick a bunch of makeup photos that I had done, and he was kind enough to write a letter of recommendation to the union local on my behalf. I still had to wait for 2 years, but I wound up serving my apprenticeship at the Metropolitan Opera House for 4 years.
And Dick Smith was the makeup artist at that time.
Oh, he
right?
still is. He
Yeah,
still very
still?
much is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I always think of who's the guy, the other, his name slips my mind, the one who worked for John Landis.
Oh, Rick Baker.
Rick Baker.
Rick Baker is a protege of Dick Smith.
Dick Smith.
Yeah, Rick Baker is. I can't say enough nice things about him. You know, I have an enormous amount of respect and admiration for Rick Baker.
Well, you worked on a bunch of movies, Ghostbusters, The Sentinel. You made up.
John Carradine. One of the high points of my career. You want to hear a couple of John Carradine stories? I'll keep them short.
Maybe we can do that during the second half of the show.
Wonderful.
But I just want to get over to Saturday Night Live because we've got like a few minutes before we have to do the makeup. But Saturday Night Live was a big part of your career.
Yeah, very, very big, very, very important.
We
part.
both worked in the same building for 17 years and never once did our paths cross.
Lived 2 miles apart from each other for
Right.
16 years without knowing it.
But tell me about the Coneheads and the makeups you worked on.
Well, I saw the show once, and I called up the woman who scheduled makeup, hair, and wardrobe, and I said, "Please, I've got to work on this show. It's just so wonderful." And after all, I lived, just like several blocks away from 30 Rockefeller Plaza at the time. I was living in New York City, and so she said she would, and true to her word, the first time that they needed like a little extra help with some special effects, it was a bald cap that I was putting on one of the writers. She called me up, and and I began a 20-season long. What would you call it? Experience? I call myself a
Term of employment.
Yeah, I call myself a 20-season survivor of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that's well put.
Yeah, it's one of the happiest associations of my life, let alone my career.
Quickly want to mention the program that you're involved with that you shot a pilot for, called Dear Igor.
Oh yeah.
And based on the character from the Lugosi's character from Son of Frankenstein. Just tell us about. We got about a minute.
Well, when I have a beard and a mustache on and snaggled teeth and the farrier's apron and the wig and everything like that, I happen to bear a striking resemblance to Igor Koval. Well, I'm not sure that's his last name, but Koval means blacksmith in Polish. So
that fits.
Yeah. So and
You see that, Frankenstein? They hanged me once. They broke my neck.
It's uncanny.
But Igor does not die. You want to know why? Igor is not well hung, eh? 1/2 teaspoon of hydroyensic acid. Watch out, it burns your tongue. And finally, 300 milliliters of trichloro methyl ethyl mermanite. Shake them up real good. Garnish with a slice of lemon. Over the lips and through the gums. Look out, Kishkas. Here it comes. Hey, Louie, which cab am I driving to? Hey, Rookie, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. And you do where you want it. Go, 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 go. Before the door. Up and under the. Wow.
We're going to continue this in a minute. We're by no means through with our discussion, but I want to get your lovely assistant fiance in here.
Okay.
And do a quick George Burns first before we start the makeup
Certainly,
session.
Richie. What do you want to know? Here, from the Sunshine Boys, okay?
Go ahead. Quick one.
What's the matter? I hear your blood don't circulate.
Oh, it circulates. Not everywhere, but it circulates.
I'm still in demand. I'm hot.
If this room was on fire, you wouldn't be hot.
We'll be back in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Kevin Clement. I'm the curator of Chiller Theater and Chiller Theater Magazine, and you're watching Front Row.
Well, Mike, now that you kicked me off my own show, you mind explaining what's going on here?
Why not? I'm going to do a little quick makeup, and I hope you like it. It's a lot of the things that we do in makeup is try to fake reality, and you can pretty successfully resculpt the face with different colored makeups, using different colored shadows and highlights. This, by the way, is my scantily clad assistant and my fiancée, Christine Domanietsky, who teaches a crash course in makeup with me on weekends.
If you hadn't said that, I was going to ask you to tell everybody where you two met and how you got together.
We met on Zacharias Disco Teen, and just kind of didn't see each other for about 23 years. You can jump in whenever you want. As badly as I wanted to ask Christine out, I didn't have the courage to do so. But I had this really terrible crush on her. And then, as I said, we each went our separate ways for about 23 years. And then, thanks to the Zacharias Disco Teen reunion, it was in February of 1991, we were reunited and fell in love. And we've been together ever since.
You had 25 years to build up your confidence.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So what would this makeup, where have you applied this makeup?
On people's eyes.
I mean, for any certain type of movies? Certain specific movies?
As a matter of fact, I put a couple of black eyes on Dan Aykroyd, with whom we are both working. Christine is also a makeup artist. And, close eyes, please.
Soul Man.
Yeah, Soul Man. We work on Soul Man.
As of this taping,
you're
working on his show.
Yeah, and I'm working on the show primarily because of my long-standing association and friendship with Danny Aykroyd. We met in 1975 on Saturday Night Live, and I did a lot of his character makeup on the show, and I did a few movies. One of which was Neighbors, which was. I'm sorry and very sad and regretful to say that it was John Belushi's last film.
1980, right?
Yeah, it was 81, somewhere around there. And his character had to get a black eye in that one. So I put a black eye on Danny Aykroyd in 1981. And then again, just a few weeks ago, he was, I think the show has already aired, where John Goodman plays his Air Force buddy. And they go to a bar and get into a big brawl. And the following day, Dan Aykroyd's character, Mike Weber, Father Mike Weber, he plays an Episcopal minister, is sporting a mouse. So Danny Aykroyd has worn two of my black eyes. Turn this way, please. So, see, by applying different colored makeups to the skin, I'm lisping like mad now because I have these stupid teeth in my mouth. Hello.
Has
my name
anybody
is
got this-
Calvin Hooger. You get rid of these.
No, don't take them off. They look
I'll
great.
leave one in. I look like a tone arm on a record player.
I wanted to ask you about the Hanimals.
Yeah.
Explain what they are.
Good.
Good.
And then furthermore,
Now let's go on to the.
thank you. An Italian artist, Mario Mariotti, had developed a system of painting his hands to look like the heads of animals and birds, and called them the Hanimals. And the art director that was working for an advertising company called Lintus, New York, was in an airport one day and saw the book, The Hanimals, and figured that that would be a really wonderful gimmick to use to advertise jewelry like rings or bracelets, and finally was able to sell the idea to Citizen Noblio watches. So he was looking for a makeup artist that could paint hands to resemble the heads of birds and animals, and he first contacted a woman who was a fine artist. She wasn't a makeup artist per se, but a fine artist. Look up, please. And he asked if she could do it. He described what he wanted over the phone, and she said, sure, I think I can handle that. And she showed up, and she was like 8.9 months pregnant, leaning against the door jamb, breathing heavily. And he said, well, I don't know if we're going to be ready to go by the time you're ready to go. So he was looking around for someone else, and after trying out one or two other makeup artists, called me in to sort of audition, and I painted my hand to look like the head of a zebra and got the job. So that the ad campaign won, I can't remember how many Clios it won, whether it was 2 or 3, but the ads were running in international magazines for 3 years. We did 3 different groups of Hanimals, and
Really?
it was yeah.
Really beautiful work.
Oh,
really,
thank you.
Really beautiful work. Well,
Thank
the
you.
pictures speak for themselves. And are we done with this
Yeah.
job?
See, we have a
Instant
black eye.
eye.
And by putting paler colors on the areas that you want to make appear jump out, and darker colors where you want the area to appear as though it's sunken in, you can create the effect of, you can create a kind of a 3D effect. This doesn't hurt, I hope, while I'm doing. See, and yeah, and this would be like attempting a 3D effect without actually adding a prosthetic or like a piece. I could powder this, but I forgot to bring the powder over, so there goes that idea.
Yeah, I didn't know you worked.
Oh, sure.
I didn't know you worked Sesame Street. That's
No,
another.
I worked Sesame Street a couple of times. That was a few years ago. That show, and coincidentally, Sesame Street, the Sesame Street hair and makeup room, is the room next to ours. It's next to the Soul Man makeup and hair room. We tape and Sesame Street tapes at the Astoria Studios in Queens, the Big House, as it's called. It started out as a military soundstage. Well, no, I don't even think it was a soundstage back then. I don't know whether the talkies were around yet. I'm probably all wrong about this, but a lot of military training films were shot at what we call the Big House, and then it went on to become a well, yeah, of course it started before talkies, because a lot of silent films were done at the Astoria Studios, and there are hundreds of publicity stills from the silent era decorating the walls of the Astoria
Marx
Studios.
Brothers did their first 2 films.
Yeah. And there's a couple of photographs of a very, very young Claude Rains. You want to hear my Claude Rains impersonation?
I'd love to. I was going to ask you to do your John Carradine, but do Claude
I
Rains
need your
first.
help. I need your help. You have to make like a telephone.
Ring.
Telephone. I think I'll answer it. Hello? What? No, you fool. This is Claude Rains. One moment, please. Hello? What? No, you fool. This is not Claude Rains. This is Elizabeth Ashley.
Just do one quick John Carradine.
John Carradine?
Yeah.
Okay. He was telling me about the time that he guested on Kung Fu. Of course, his son David Carradine, I believe that's his eldest son, David Carradine, is the he's the
Star
lead
of the
character.
show.
Yeah, Grasshopper. And on the show also were Keith and Robert Carradine, or is that Keith and Robert Carradines? But anyway, so it was John, David, Robert, and Keith Carradine all guesting on the show. And he says,
Every time you turned around, you up your ass in carradines.
And you worked with Vincent Price, didn't you?
Yes, I did. When he did television commercials for Time Life books about haunted houses, ghosts and witches and warlocks and things like that. And what a lovely guy. I remember. I first walked in, and you know, and I get to meet Vincent Price. Oh God, I'm so excited. So as I was standing there, just kind of staring at him, he was talking to one of the people in the production company, and a woman from the advertising agency walked up to him, and she extended her hand and said, "Hi, Mr. Price. I don't know whether you remember me," but he turned around and went, "Pauline, how lovely to see you." Well, I have to put my wardrobe on now. We'll chat later. He walked away, and she's standing there with her mouth open. She said, "I met him for 5 minutes 2 weeks ago in California, and he remembered my name." Just unbelievable. Just one of the nicest men I've ever had the pleasure and honor to work with. All the horror greats that I've worked with. Christopher Lee, magnificent gentleman. I was making up for the time he hosted Saturday Night Live, and as I was making him up, he said, "May I tell you something as a person?" And I thought, oh God, I offend, my body odor or my, like bad breath or something. I said, "By all means." And he said, "Never shave your head. I shaved it for a part once, got my scalp sunburned, and the hair never grew back correctly." So has worn a piece for decades now.
Really?
Yeah, and that was why, because he shaved his head.
I think it's appropriate to wrap this up to say a few words about somebody who was very, very influential in your career, and that's John Zackerly.
John Zackerly was at several very important crossroads of my life. He's my surrogate father. Some of the fondest memories that I have are sitting on the couch in the Bronx next to my dad watching Shock Theater. I fell madly in love with horror, fantasy, and science fiction. And then because I was on Zackerly's Discotine, I met Christine. Because we were at the Discotine reunion, we were reunited, and we're good friends to this day. And I love him a lot.
He's a wonderful guy. And
Really.
we're going to wrap it up now. But thanks, Mike, Christine. Thanks so much for doing this for us. And we'll see you. You'll come back again, right?
I hope so. I hope so. Thanks a lot,
See you
Rich. It
next
was
time.
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Who needs a makeup artist? Oh, just a footnote. A copy of Mike's pilot for Dear Igor found its way into the hands of Bela Lugosi's son, who's a lawyer in L.A. Well, Bela Jr. loved it, adding that he was glad to see someone impersonate one of his father's characters and not play Dracula. For Front Row, this is Rich Scrivani.